I'm Andy Mack. We've already seen one partial government shutdown in 2026. We could soon, at the end of this week, see yet another. And there's a lot of interesting conversations happening right now on Capitol Hill as House Republicans want to fund DHS for the remainder of the fiscal year. Senate Republicans, I should say, are more leaning toward a potential continuing resolution. A live look right there at the U.S. Capitol building and some reporting from Capitol Hill reporters, including Cami Mondeaux with Deseret, saying the Senate Majority Leader, based on the progress that's been made, he thinks the best path forward is a CR for DHS funding, saying we got to keep people at the table. Democrats demanding quite a bit of reform in terms of those ICE agents and some of the roving patrols during immigration enforcement crackdowns. Let's be joined right now from our nation's capital. Cami Mondeaux joins us. Where do we stand exactly? Thune, it appears to be in favor of a CR. Can you get House Republicans on board?
Absolutely. So as you said, just about an hour ago, Leader Thune did file cloture on a bill in the Senate that's going to be used as the legislative vehicle for some sort of spending deal. Like you said, it's likely going to be another CR. We don't know how long that might be. We don't know if other things will be attached or even taken out of it. None of that has been decided yet. We don't know if Senate Democrats will be on board with that. We don't even know if the House will be in town in time to consider it. So there are a lot of questions that just are not answered at the moment, and whether they will even meet this midnight deadline on Friday.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know at this point. And you mentioned at odds the House Republicans and Senate Republicans, they are potentially meeting today as well. How will they square it? Do you think Thune could get Johnson on board, the speaker there, for a stopgap measure?
I think if the Senate can manage to get something through, it'd probably be a little bit easier to get those House Republicans on board. But the problem is the House is supposed to leave on Thursday. That deadline is on Friday. So it would require the House making a quick decision on what they're going to do with scheduling. When I asked some House Republican leaders earlier today, they said they would prefer that the Senate just pass the DHS funding bill that's already passed the House. That seems to be their stance on this. So passing a CR might be difficult for the House. And even then, it would eat into the timeline of whatever they choose. So again, like you said, we don't know what we don't know.
We don't know a whole lot moving forward in terms of this. And also they have that kind of Thursday deadline ahead of the Friday deadline because there are security conferences, the Munich security conference going on, plenty of lawmakers going to be there. If no CR gets done, do they punt on that, or is it just a partial shutdown and we'll work on it when we get back?
It would be a partial shutdown. In this situation, it would just be the Department of Homeland Security that would not have funding. So just one of the 12 appropriations bills. But in there, you have situations like TSA or FEMA who wouldn't be getting the funding that they need. The whole situation of why Democrats don't want to fund it is because of ICE and CBP, the Border Patrol. But they already have money that they can use through the big, beautiful bill that passed last summer. So really, it would just be these alternate departments that are under DHS that have nothing to do with immigration that would be the ones kind of scrambling for funds.
And we've heard Republicans taking orders from the White House, from the president on some of these funding bills as well. Have we heard anything from the president about his stance on this? Because I believe it was last time saying there should be no changes. Have he signaled if he's on board with a CR?
So far, the White House is working with Senate Democrats to come to some kind of agreement or to negotiate terms. We aren't sure what was in that White House counter proposal that was sent over yesterday. Democrats have been pretty mum on the details, just saying that it wasn't enough. But since then, the White House hasn't come out yet to say whether they support a CR, whether they want to go through with the full funding bill. The White House is just negotiating behind the scenes for right now, and we're not sure whether they would be open to this extension. I'm sure now that Thune is moving forward, they'll have to put in one way or the other, but so far we haven't seen that.
And when we started this after that first partial shutdown of 2026, they set this 2-week kind of time frame. Was that too ambitious from the get-go? And they said there's a lot of work left to be done. 2 weeks wasn't a lot to get it done, and it turns out it might not be.
Right. And the main issue, too, is that 2-week extension was really when it passed the Senate. It took another half week just to get through the House. And then that's when they started negotiations, really only giving them 10 days. So if you ask any Republican, they'll tell you that was way too short of an extension. But that's what the White House agreed on with Democrats. That's what they demanded. Now Democrats are saying they don't want another CR. They don't want an extension. So it seems that, Republicans are saying, well, Democrats want it to shut down. They don't want another extension. So that 2-week was ambitious. I don't know if there was ever really a goal of getting something done before then.
And a lot of lawmakers are multitasking this week because a lot of different press conference comments about the Save America Act moving forward in both chambers. Where does that stand? The House potentially could vote this week, I hear.
Yes, the House is initially expected to vote on that tomorrow evening if the schedule stays the same for this week. Then it will be sent over to the Senate, where it's going to be a little more difficult. The SAVE Act, which was the original legislation, has already passed the House 2 times. So this would be the third time. It's never gotten a vote in the Senate just because of that 60 vote threshold to have to overcome a filibuster. So Senate Majority Leader Thune is saying they're trying to talk through ways of how they could bring it to the floor to vote on it and make sure that it doesn't fail. But that filibuster is really what they're trying to decide on what to do there.
And obviously, President Trump has mentioned the midterms being so very crucial. How central is this to President Trump when he talks about the midterms and this important election upcoming?
Right. It could not have, immediate effects. Some of the requirements that are included in the Save America Act wouldn't take effect until 2027. But it is a big deal for Republicans because this was one of Trump's main campaign messages when he was campaigning back in 2024. And so this would be a big moment to say, look, this is another thing on our agenda that we've accomplished, that you guys should keep supporting the Republican Party. There are some amendments to try and implement these before 2026, but it's not clear if that has enough support.
And I heard a question yesterday at the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries press conference. I don't know if it was you or another reporter there on Capitol Hill asking about just the support of the American public for the Save America Act, as there feels to be a lot of people behind it. How are Democrats trying to handle this with a bill, the Save America Act, that might have a lot of support from the general public?
Right. To your point, voter ID is vastly popular throughout the country, especially from Republicans and Democrats. I think what Democratic lawmakers are pushing against is the fact that to do this, voters would have to provide a lot of documentation and physical papers that millions of people don't have immediate access to, whether it's your passport or your birth certificate. Married women would have to have a lot of documentation to show why their last name is different from their birth certificate. I think that's the main issue, is House Democrats just think it'll put too many hurdles in the way for people to vote, whereas Republicans are saying, this is the only way to make sure our elections are safe.
Yeah, and obviously just on its front, it seems popular, but if you dive into a little bit, it obviously kind of restricts some people from voting in ways that Democrats cannot get on board with. Cami Mondeaux, anything else you're watching? It's a busy week. Everyone's kind of going in so many different directions. Anything else you want to know?
I think just keeping an eye on whether they do move forward with the CR and whether the House does leave on Thursday morning. That'll be a real kicker to see if the DHS is actually going to shut down at midnight on Friday.
That is a big if, and we could soon be barreling toward another partial shutdown. I know we'll talk again very soon about all of those interesting notes. Cami Mondeaux with Deseret, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. All right, great conversation. As just 3 days until the Department of Homeland Security is running out of that funding, Republicans on board saying that they funded it through the One Big Beautiful Bill, but also moving forward with the Save America Act. It's already passed a couple times in the House. They're going to try to do it one more time. So some big ifs, some big question marks out there. House Republicans saying they want a full fund. They already passed some of that funding. They want Democrats to get on board with that. Senate Republicans say they want a CR, some sort of stopgap to keep DHS funded for the time being while they work on more negotiations in those reforms, those Democratic demands in terms of immigration enforcement operations. Again, just this from Cami Mondeaux talking about this, from Senator John Thune saying based on the progress that's been made, he thinks the best path forward is a CR. We got to keep people at the table.